Hey, hey, hey.
Hey Colin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? Good to see you
I'm
again.
good. Yeah, same. Looking great. Love the sweater.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Love your
yeah.
shirt. Nicely, nice patterns. Pattern day.
Thank you. It's just like I don't know what it is. It's like is it like plant roots? It's something natural feeling. So I just said, hey, abstract art. Let's call it that. Abstract art. Yeah. Um. So how are things? Anything special happened over the weekend? I know I had a pretty cool experience over the
Tell me about
weekend.
it. No, my weekend was pretty standard. What did you do?
Yeah. Okay, great. So Friday I had the privilege of um, serving, the my country. Uh, no, no, it's not that serious. And the
What's
country, but
serving
so
your country mean?
yeah, so I'm a U.S. Embassy Youth Ambassador, you know, alum or alumni, which I don't know what the correct term is. So it pretty much means that I was a part of a program sponsored by the United States to bring students from Jamaica to the US for about 3 weeks, engage in leadership development, advocacy, community development, and volunteerism, and then return to Jamaica and execute a project. All right. So the bad news is I didn't go on the trip. This is 2013 now, guys. This is like what 12 years ago, 2013. But when my team got back, then I was instrumental. We started a volunteerism club in a couple of our schools, and that club is still active today right now. So that's pretty major. So they reached out to me to assist with just the interview process to pick some fresh young Jamaicans from across the country to represent the country in the US on this program. So that was pretty cool. Entering the US embassy, through the back gate, not through the front, right? And being checked off with security, and they're like, "Who are you here to?" They have vests and everything, like serious stuff, man. I walk in and metal detector, like up and down, it's like crazy stuff, and I'm escorted in, and it's just like crazy presidential type stuff, right? So that was a pretty good experience. Then we had the interviews on Zoom. I thought the students would have been there. Nah, guess too much security clearance to go through, but that was pretty cool on Friday.
What are your takeaways for the youth of Jamaica? What did you see? What type of skill sets do they have, or what do they need to? What were your takeaways?
It's a mixed emotions, but there's potential for sure. I would say they should pursue networking, right? No pun intended. They should pursue networking because the very act of being social, being involved in what we call extracurricular activities, meaning outside of the school curriculum, meaning whatever it is, maybe it's a chess club or a debating club or a key club, like get as involved as you possibly can because it puts you in social environments that teach you something. So whether it's great for you or you're totally freaking out, it's good for you because it helps to develop that comfortability, being with people and interacting, which is essential for work, business, and just for life. I found that some of the kids, even though they were, I'd say they were eager to participate in the program, not everybody was as I would say as socially confident. Not to say that they can't develop that, but they weren't as socially confident as personally I would have liked. That's not the only criteria, but and the program is supposed to help them to develop in that capacity. Shout out to the U.S. Embassy Youth Ambassador Program. Thank you, Colin. Your taxpayer dollars are helping other countries in the world. So thank you for paying your taxes, sir. and and shout out to the U.S. Embassy in Kingston for that program.
What type of social activities do you or curriculars do you make suggestions that people try to to do? What did you suggest to them, or what did you
Yeah,
see that they were lacking?
absolutely. Well, we it wasn't time or space because of the time constraints
Yeah.
to give feedback. It was just to take our notes and then discuss amongst ourselves afterwards to pick the top candidates. But if I could have a conversation with each of them, I would definitely recommend one, a sport. A sport. Of course, the for the physical and health benefits, but also to teach them how to work on a team, or how to rely on others when it's outside of your control, and have a good positive attitude, and also to have a little bit of pressure knowing that others are relying on you. All right. So having that those abilities or that mindset, I think, can best be developed through being on a sports team. That's one. Second, I think, hey, get involved in something that challenges you intellectually or mentally, something that forces you to think. So I'd maybe say something like debating, maybe chess club, um, maybe something that requires maybe quiz, because there's a quiz competition amongst the high schools in Jamaica, and it's very competitive. So get involved in some that challenges you intellectually, that teaches you or forces you to study or memorize. Now, memorizing is not everything when it comes to learning, but it's a big chunk. Like iterations, going over it again and again. That's I think that's pretty critical. And so I think a lot of students go through school, they focus on the books, but never on the extracurricular activities that develop those two abilities to work on a team and to think critically and independently of other people's influences. And so they bring that into the working world, they bring that into their business, and unfortunately I think some people suffer because they're fearful of people, they don't like working on a team, and they can't bother with the problems that come up. So they're not problem solving effectively. So I think that poses all kinds of problems. So that's what I'd recommend for anybody, any kid, or if you're listening, encourage your children. Share this video clip with your kids as they're going through school, and maybe this will kind of reinforce what I'm sure you're already telling them. And this is for the listeners and the watchers, right? You're already telling them these things. No, just say there's this guy on LinkedIn that says the same thing. All right, go do it now. And you're welcome. You can thank me later. Um,
I love that. Yeah, I agree with that idea. One quick story. When I was when I was younger, when I was early in high school, I loved playing basketball. That was my sport. Um, are you familiar with JJ Redick? Do you know
JJ
who that
Redick.
is?
I played table tennis. I
Okay.
didn't wasn't a strong basketball program at my school, so unfortunately.
He's the current coach of the Lakers, the LA Lakers. He was an
Okay.
NBA player, like a college player. He's the current like head coach of the Lakers. Um, quick story is that I went to play basketball. I was a basketball player. I love playing basketball, and I went to um, Duke University, uh, like summer camp between my ninth and 10th grade because I was thinking about like what extracurricular activity should I try to pursue in high school. And I was loved playing basketball. I wanted to kind of take it a little bit more seriously. And I went, and I'll always remember this was before social media, that part of the camp experience is you get to interact with the upcoming freshmen that are going to be part of the college team. So it was the people who just graduated from high school that are going to be freshmen. And JJ Redick was in that class. So he had to uh, basically have lunch with us, like the campers, and we got to watch him practice and like see what his experience is and talk with him. And I remember he was really nice. He explained to us like what he did in high school, and this was before social media, so you didn't have the opportunity to look things up. And what I'll always remember about that experience is I stopped playing basketball because of JJ Redick. And the reason being is because I saw how intense he was at that time when it came to basketball. I saw how physically gifted he was, and then also the intensity in which he brought to the game. Like he would explain to us what he did in high school, like as a practice, like, waking up really early, like weights, like he just did everything that you would expect someone who would eventually become like an NBA player to do at that time. And I would watch him practice, and like the intensity that he brought to the game. I walked away from that experience being like, I'm never going to like basketball as much as JJ Redick likes. This guy likes basketball. Like I just don't, I like basketball, but not like this guy likes basketball. And I always had, like, it was in my head. I was like, I got to find what is it that I like doing as much as JJ Redick, this guy, likes playing basketball, because you have to bring that intensity to be good at it. And that was the last year that I played like organized basketball. I would always still play basketball just for the love of, the athletics, but I always, I changed course in my high school experience where I joined, like by like junior year, I joined the debate team, and I was the editor of the yearbook, because I started trying to realize, like, what am I good at? Talking and creative, like, programs. And at that point, like trying to learn like Photoshop, I like that stuff, like the computer visual components of it. And I like getting in front of people and talking. And it's funny because it's like now that's basically my career, like what I do, performing by talking, and then also like systems, creative art. But it started from the realization that you always have to try to find something that you're passionate about, that you are good at, that you can compete at. Because if you do things, that you're not, that you might like, but you're not the best at, it's like about trying to find your way. So I'm a big proponent of needing to have some type of extracurricular activity, but then also trying to figure out, like, when you're young, what is it that you have like natural inclinations for? Like, what is it that you are good at? And yeah, you got to taste a lot of things to know. Sometimes you like doing something, but you realize other people are way better at this naturally than I am. So that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But like, what am I naturally good at? And start trying to like streamline into, figuring out. I always think about this, like, what can I do in my life that I'm passionate? Like I see JJ Redick playing basketball, because I do not feel that way about basketball like he does. And meanwhile, he went on to be an NBA player, a great college player, and now an NBA coach. And so it's like you see it even when you're young, the passion that people have for certain disciplines.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So in essence, you're like, okay, I'm not gonna go that hard. So maybe I should just, find my niche. In
Yeah.
essence, and that's what you did. You found
Yeah.
your niche. Huh,
He
nice.
he was such a good shooter, and he was so emotional. I remember, like, you'd be like at the camp, like when you go into college, they would have practice at like 7:30 p.m. So imagine, like, you're a camp counselor, you're young, you have like your whole day, you go to dinner, and then like at the end of the day, the campers would watch like the Duke them practice. So they would have practice at like 7 p.m. at night, like the college players, to go through drills. And so imagine, like, I'm like basically like tired from the whole day of like doing work. And then you watch him, and not only is he like going so hard, but you like talked to him earlier, that it's not like he didn't do anything all day. He was working out, he had a full day too. And he was like mad at himself for missing shots. Like, you see how the intensity that he would bring, like, on himself, like highly emotional intensity around everything that he was doing, while I was sitting there being like thinking about like going to sleep, having to wake up and do this again tomorrow. And you would watch them, and you're like, you know what? I think that like there are certain people that just enjoy this a little bit more than me, that are also naturally gifted, because he's tall, he's strong. Like, I just don't think I could compete with him, is the end of the day. It's like, he's a white shooter. He's my ideal. He is what I would ideally like to be. And I'm not even close to that. Or I'm not even like, I don't even care, to be totally honest, to be that like he does. So yeah, it's you got to, I always like to say, you got to find what you like doing as much as JJ Redick likes to playing basketball.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in high school. I was super fired up about table tennis. Yeah, I would like get up and train. Especially when I got to college, I'd go for long runs on the weekends, run for miles, just whatever I could do. Heck, I even joined the track and field team. Being at the University of the West Indies, I'm on the table tennis team, and then I joined the track team to train with them. And these are like I'm literally training with world champions in track and field. It wasn't my sport, so I wasn't like super fired up. They're like regular people, but like Sharika Jackson, people like that, like people who are breaking world records like in the past 12 months, right? Which is just absolutely phenomenal. I trained with them, like running laps and etc. And I found that my game got better in table tennis when I improved in the training that I was doing, but I was never as good as, for example, the captain of the team, because those guys they were putting in far more work than I was long before I was. They had
Yeah.
proper training, better training than I did from a young age. I kind of grew up in a place where you just kind of figure it out. You just go on YouTube, like watch a couple technique tutorials, and then go and figure it. Just hit the ball, whatever. Like try and make it work. And I never really got much formal training till I got to the university. So I was already years behind, but I was so determined. What kind of broke my spirit a little pertaining to table tennis was applying for a Chinese exam. I studied 3 years of Chinese. You probably didn't know
No, I didn't know
Chinese
that.
for 3 years. And I had applied to a university in China. I think it was the University of Beijing, and I got turned down. Right, I didn't get accepted. So I'm like, you know what? That's the whole point of me like learning Chinese was to play table tennis with the best. And I didn't get to go. So I'm like, you know what? I'm at the end of my university tenure. I need a job. You know what? Let me put table tennis on pause just a little bit. Just a little bit. So but even while going through training, I saw the intensity that even like the captain of my team had. All right. And it was impressive, a little bit annoying because they're a little cocky, right? but but I was impressed by that, and I knew I probably wouldn't get as far as he's. I know he's like representing Jamaica, playing internationally, like even to this day, right? I wouldn't have gone that far, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So I can relate to you and your basketball
Yeah,
dream.
it's just that's why it reminded me of that story because whenever I feel like I'm trying to give advice to the youth, I agree that they got to be an extracurricular because you never know what comes out of that, right? Like I like playing basketball, but the most important thing about being part of those like camps and like really pursuing it is to sometimes realize based off your peers that you're not it's important to realize that you're not best in class compared to other people. And it's okay. That doesn't mean you can't do it, but like trying to find it helps you like reorient yourself to say, well, what are the things that maybe you are like have natural proclivities for? And it's okay to go down the wrong path, but like the only way to know that is by doing.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm crushing it with marketing. My table tennis captain. There's no way he's better at marketing than I am. So we all have our areas of giftedness, and so yeah, let's not be envious of others and say, oh, he's so talented in X area. Yeah, you're talented in an area as well, and etc. But Colin, I'm a little concerned. Could it be said that some people are not gifted in networking, or is networking so diverse and broad that there are aspects of it that every single person can be very, very good at, and or is it just a single skill that you either have or you don't?
No, I think it's such a learnable skill. I do think certain people have natural proclivities for uh like people engagement. Like some people are more extroverted, some people are more introverted, just naturally. So some people feel more comfortable talking with people than others. Some people are more curious than others, which helps, right? Because you're naturally want to know more about the other person versus some people just don't really have that natural curiosity. They kind of more so want to be out of this social situation. So I totally understand there's a spectrum there, but I think it's totally a learnable skill. You could definitely improve at it. Like it's just like table tennis or basketball. Like the more you do it, the more you're willing to kind of get uncomfortable or get comfortable with the uncomfortable. You can get better. You do get better. Yeah, I totally think it's a learnable skill. And one of the things that, because I've taught networking to people, at least on LinkedIn, in person might be a little bit different, but we've talked about this before offline, is understanding more so about what maybe not to say versus thinking so much about what do I say. Because sales oftentimes is a matter of like progressing towards some type of conversion. So because of that, there's like micro conversions along the way, right? You want to introduce yourself. You want to open a dialogue. You want to ask questions and do diagnostics before you pitch what you want, right? So I find that most people who are overthinking it are just not understanding the progression arc of what like an organic engagement requires. Like if you start pitching immediately, then you're losing the social part of it that turns people off. So that's an example of something that is totally teachable. It's like once you explain it to somebody and they internalize it, then it's more about like, okay, understanding where you are in the funnel or in the arc, and then being able to, have the right mechanics, let's just say, just like table tennis, just like basketball. It's like, if you're not a good shooter, like you can learn the mechanics of it. Like there's ways to get better at it, like learn the mechanics. So same with networking. There are mechanics involved in it that you might not be aware of, but once you are aware of, you could get better. You can improve. You can improve your, just like your shooting percentage or your table tennis, like serve percentage. You could, increase your conversion rates on openers, on diagnostic capabilities, on overall conversion rates of when you meet somebody to get, whether or not it's a meeting or a number, you could get better at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are skills that you can learn in networking that give you an edge. And I like what you said. Learning what not to say sometimes is just as important, if not more, than learning what to say. And I think it's less work, it's less you have to figure out, it's less you have to keep track of. Just maybe five or so things not to say, or five or so things not to do. Then everything else is it's just free reign. You have full freedom and space to navigate that. All right, awesome. So we've met great people in our networking and along the way in life. And sometimes we meet not so great people, right? And sometimes it's too late when you realize, oh, this person is not a match. And sometimes you'll still keep pressing, like me, I've made that mistake. Keep pressing. All right, yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll make it work. Maybe like like a bad relationship. It's going nowhere, and you keep saying, you know what? Maybe I can change them. Maybe I can make it work, and it doesn't. So I've been wondering. Okay, we all know who our ICP is, or we're working on it, ideal customer profile. But who are the persons we should avoid, right? The unideal customer profile. Who are the bad people to network with, you know. Hmm. So
That is a good question. I'll share that. I've had two categories of people that, because I've made the mistakes too, especially when I was early on building my service business. I approached it where I would try to help anybody. So when I started my business by offering a copywriting service where I would help people make over their profile. This was before ChatGPT, so there was a little bit more copywriting skill required to help people share their story before AI, where you could kind of collaborate with AI. They would collaborate with me. and I would do it for anybody. It was 100% just purely financially driven, where at a price, if you did the price, you got your service. But what I realized by doing that was like understanding opportunity cost. Because when you start saying yes to everybody, what's the purpose of me doing this, what I called like an introductory offer? The introductory offer was supposed to upsell services, because otherwise you're just basically on a sales hamster wheel, right? Like you got to keep selling to do more profile makeovers. That I'm not saying that's bad, but like at the end of that, wouldn't it be nice if you could do it for one and then sell them something and get the yes right then to get recurring revenue, to say, well, now that I proved myself, let me do this service that, I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars a month, and we can sign a 3-month contract, or so you can get off the hamster wheel of sales and get more into like maintenance mode to, deliver services. And I started realizing, well, I got to be more selective on who has the right business model that would allow for that, because certain people that were saying yes to profile makeovers might be people who are, and I did this for people who were trying to get a job. So, by default, if you're trying to get a job, you don't want, like, you might pay a flat fee for an introductory offer, but you're not going to pay a maintenance fee ongoing because you don't have a business. So I started realizing, okay, well, I might be able to get front revenue from people who are unemployed by doing this, but is that really the best client to really spend time getting to know, servicing, writing, when every single time without fail? And I understood why. You're not going to be able to, there's nothing at the end of the road here. So what I had to start realizing for me, obviously there's businesses that you can create for people who don't have jobs, but that's not who I wanted to go after. I want to go for people at businesses, not who are looking for jobs. So that was like one example of something that I had to start avoiding. If you're unemployed, LinkedIn could be a great resource for you, but it's not a great resource for my business because it's a lot of upfront time and effort for me to deliver value with the opportunity cost being too high, because if I can only do so many at one time, that I'm going to potentially miss out on doing other activities like outreach, prospecting for my ICP. So that was one category. So then the next category was, okay, now I've settled on, I need people who have businesses. That's the only, path forward. Let's get rid of the people who don't have a business and don't have a job. And within that, there's a lot of nuance too. I've only had one experience of somebody who didn't pay me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I've worked with a lot of different people, and only one person, they know who they are too, because they felt bad over the years and have got to come back to me at different times trying to make it right. Because we agreed on certain things. I did the work, and they just took advantage of me. And so the people to avoid, I would say that in that experience I had, there were red flags that I ignored because I wanted to do the work and I thought that I could help them. So what I would say as a kind of advice is you want to understand the business model of the business that you're getting involved in. How do they make money? It goes back to our conversation last week of I'm trying to help businesses make money because it aligns our interests, but also because I want to get paid. So if I know that they have revenue coming in, then I don't stand, unless they're a bad person, then they owe me money. And we're aligned on the interest. The red flag for me was not thinking that the person I was working with had the right business model. I was asking him a lot of questions about how they made money because it was a service-based business. And let's just say I didn't really quite understand the sustainability of their business model. It was they did a lot of video editing. And like it seemed like the contracts of what they kind of engaged with were not clear. Their ICP wasn't clear. Like there was a lot of things that were just unclear as I was going through the vetting of like, well, needing to understand this type of information in order to service you. And the answers weren't clear, as if they were still kind of figuring it out a little bit. So there were a lot of red flags that I was realizing I want to avoid those people. I want to avoid people who aren't really sure about who their ICP is and what their business model and how they obtain revenue. Because if they're not sure, what am I going to do? I'm not the business owner. I'm like an executor. I'm like an operator. So yeah, that was and then the other mistake I made was letting it go too far, because there were red flags at different times. And I should have had the mental fortitude, let's just say, to cut it off when I like go with my gut and say, hey, I don't think this is the right fit. Let me just move on and, just not let this linger. But I didn't. I let it, they were over promising, under delivering. I was going based off their words, not their actions. And it kind of just, just cost me my own time. And it's like, that's what I want to avoid, is I want to partner with people who we're amplifying one another. We're both growing businesses together. If you are over promising and under delivering to me, what are you doing to other people? If you're doing it to me, you're probably doing it for other people. It seems like you don't really. Also, I actually find that like when people try to hide things, in my experience, when you're trying to overly sell, to be honest, it's actually better in business to be vulnerable, in my opinion, because we could overcome the vulnerabilities together. But if you're basically lying, if you're saying that certain things are going well when they're not, what winds up happening is it's a never-ending problem to overcome. It's like, it's okay not to have all the answers, but if you're also hiding what you think people, or controlling what you think people want to know and hear, how are you supposed to have like a partnership?
Yeah, that hurts that ability, because trust level is going to be lower and lower and lower. Yeah,
that's what happened. Have you ever not been paid for work?
I
would say, but that promised work. I mean, obviously, I think most people have done things for free. I actually am a big proponent, especially when you're getting started, to over deliver value by not necessarily expecting a return. But it's different if the expectation is you're getting paid and then you don't get paid. That's scammy.
Yeah. So I think I've always been paid, but not necessarily in a promptly fashion. So there are delays that go unexplained. There is no, I guess, apology about it or an update, and so it's just a little awkward. And I have to remind myself to be professional, be kind, because those are my values. Being kind, I have to remember that, and when I can, then I bring it up at an appropriate time without making them feel uncomfortable. So I have experienced that, but I've always been paid eventually. Right?
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. In terms of what you share, I've never looked at it as far as assessing the strength of the customers or the client's business as well. I've never looked at it like that. Making sure that I understand how they're making money, and the feasibility and sustainability of that. Because if they don't make money, then they're probably going to have a hard time paying me. I think I've overlooked that, from the sheer excitement that, yes, I got one, right? I got a client, right? Gonna make some, earn some money now, and let me just act like I don't see the yellow flags.
Yep. I've many examples of that where they did pay me, but I went down the path. To be honest, that's where I resonate a lot with your business model, because that's where I started, and I felt the same way. I was so excited to get them set up on LinkedIn and kind of doing lead generation that I totally ignored the viability of what it is that they were selling and their ability to like close, and trying to actually think about it from a customer's, like an objective customer's point of view, where if I do all this work and you get on a call, would I, if I was that person, understand what you're selling and
Mhm.
want to move forward? And too often I was involved with businesses that if I had to really be honest with myself, I under like speaking from the customer's point of view, probably for a variety of reasons, presentation skills, the way that their website was, like just a lot of just being an objective person. Um, it I can see why they're having struggles, and I'm not saying that then um, I can't help. But do you see now we're in a catch 22 where if they're relying on me to bring in business, but I'm objectively understanding from the customer's point of view why their marketing is so off, that they need to invest more heavily in being able to redo this in order to create more lead gen machines. Like, for example, if they don't have a good website, if it's not clear what their value proposition is, um, but then they don't have the revenue to justify like an entire makeover of their website, that is red flags for me because it's like, well, I don't. One of my philosophies in life is I don't count other people's money. I'm not going to sit and judge you based off of like what you're willing to spend. Um, but people to avoid, if I don't understand what they're selling, and I don't think it's viable, I just am straight up with it right now. I even have had businesses over the last month, um, based off of the community that I'm in, present to me people that they thought I could help. And I went through my questions and I straight up told them, for similar reasons to what we're talking with, I don't think it's a good fit because I don't want to work with businesses that aren't ready to invest in like actually building out like complicated systems at this point in my career and business. If they want to partake in office hours and get support by helping themselves through content, I'm all for it. But that's more of a self-selection process, let's just say, than
Mhm.
my time, energy, and resources into growing your business. If I don't get what's going on, I would assume a lot of people aren't either. So you might want to start from the beginning here and like, what are you selling?
Yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed. So people who don't have a very clear understanding of their own ICP, who don't have the ability to clearly explain how they make money, that they're probably people not to push forward with, probably not to engage as a client. Another category I would say of people are those who have opposing values as you. So I'm about kindness and consistency. If somebody is more the 48 laws of power type person, the macho, overly macho, grab the bull by the horns, break the horns, right? Then I'm probably not a great fit. I don't know if you know those types. They're a little rough, and it's not directed towards the work. It's directed towards just like the people. Like it's just overall. They're rough with their
Yeah.
work and they're rough with people, and I don't know, they kind of expect you to be as loud or as
Yeah.
or as aggressive as they are, and that's not necessarily everybody's style, or they don't necessarily believe in that, and so that might create a little friction.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I would say along those lines, the way I kind of see a lot of LinkedIn gurus, you can call it, is elite people put too much emphasis on teaching the art of skill, the skill of sales,
Yeah.
and not as much emphasis on the art of growing businesses, of actually
Mm.
helping people grow a business. Um, I see this a lot. To be honest, as like a lawyer who went through 10 years of corporate America and kind of started like a boutique agency, I kind of came up before LinkedIn gurus was a thing. So I didn't rely on any of those people to grow my business at all. I just see it now because it's hitting a little bit more critical mass. And I find that a lot of the people the way that they preach is very much a little bit more aligned with what you said. I don't want to say that I don't know them well enough to say that they don't align with my values. I don't know that. Maybe they're great people, but I would say that they preach the art of sales. Like, how do you get somebody with templates and scripts to value what you do? It's a little bit manipulation, I would say, of like it's a little manipulative of saying like I feel one way and I don't and therefore like my time is more valuable and like we gotta I need you to say yes before I'll get on a call. Like a big one that I see is people who say that they don't take sales calls. And I don't know. It's like I just find that a little bit strange, to be totally honest, because at the end of the day, if you're actually trying to help somebody grow their business, don't you got to get to know them a little bit? And I've never heard of that as like a consultant type model, other than social media, because social media, there's a lot of like, fish in the sea. There's a lot of data. So you could kind of preach this like idea of helping people at scale in a new way. And that's kind of like a new model of business. What I'm trying to do with your support is to try to build community through content and then also software. But I'm still operating under the premise that I'm trying to over deliver value. But I see a lot of people who like want to sell basically sales training. Like they want you to buy their content essentially. And then they don't really want to interact with you that much. And I don't know, as somebody who's bought content, so like I have been a customer of this stuff. I always usually just leave slightly feeling like they're trying to sell sales more than they're actually trying to help me in any capacity grow my business or like offer like advice based off of what I want to do. Like, because at the end of the day, like there's lots of different ways to skin a cat. Like there's lots of different ways to become successful. There's no right way. It's just a matter of like what makes the most sense for you. What type of business are you trying to create? It's the same thing about like what we were talking about earlier about like, everyone has when you're like everyone likes different things. Some people are more artistic, some people are more mechanical and analytical. So it's like what makes the most sense for you. There's different business models. But a lot of people like gurus are talking more about like I have the secret answers. And if you just pay me, I'll give it to you versus flipping that model and saying, well, what do you want? Like, how can I help you achieve your goals? How you do that without like a sales call is just confusing a little bit to me.
Yeah, it's like so I'm networking on LinkedIn and I'm connecting with folks in St. Mary and so every now and again, and Kingston as well, every now and again I'll say, hey, hey, are you open to, so I'll say, hey, are you open to projects outside of what you're working on now? So you're working on so and so in this and that industry. Are you open to projects outside of that? If it doesn't clash with what you're doing. They're like, yeah, I'm definitely open. All right. So I say, sure. Let's hop on a call and let's see if our goals align. I can be reached at, like, type my number and say, and you? Question mark. And they're like, what's the call gonna be about? I'm like, how do I answer that? Right? How do I answer that? A networking call is for me to share what I'm doing and you to share what you're doing, right? The concept of networking means things collide, things intersect, right? And I don't know how to do that over chat or DMs. I think it's much shorter and quicker and more efficient over a phone call. But I think there's this thing called stranger danger that people teach their kids, but when they're kids, but they never teach them that when they become adults, they need to let that go. Stranger danger. Like, what is it
Yeah.
about? And
I totally agree with that. I will say though that I think that it's not only possible but practical to try to do your best to summarize what your ICP is, what your offer is in a way that you can then put it online. And I know that that's hard. I'm still working through that. I mean, it's an iterative, never ending process, but you know, the best businesses, if you look at the businesses, they don't need sales calls because they do such good branding and marketing, right? Like you don't need to, if you want like an Apple product, you don't need to go into the store. You can, like they do both, right? It's like, obviously you can go into the store and talk to somebody if that's what you vibe with, but they're spending a lot of money and energy into imagery and videos and content and advertisements in ways that like you could be on the other side and say, I don't need to talk to anybody. I know what this is and I want it. So I do think that there's you know, there's two methodologies. I'm not saying it can never work. I'm just specifically saying that when people are promoting the concept of a service-based business of helping people, right? That's not a product. It's like the product is information at that point. And I feel like when you selling information is a very new industry. That was never really the way it worked before. I mean, at least when they have, you could say that like, well, college is essentially that, or like a private school, but you're also paying for like an experience at that point. So I do believe that there are people online. I hope that we're going to be part of that with software that you could say we're blending information with an experience. And I do think that there's a lot of people that are doing that, right? Like community focused, right? So you get access to our private group, our master classes. You're selling the community at that point and not so much the information. But I think that it's a thin line, let's just say, for a lot of people who I see online who are community light and information heavy versus, yeah, like they're more like, well, if you pay me, I will tell you the scripts that we use. And it's like, wait a second, that's selling the idea to somebody who might not be good at sales, that the reason you're making money is because of the words. But I know from experience that that's not what's driving the money. It's you're good at sales, right? Like you're good at personalizing. It's not like the magical words. It's like, no, you're just good at this. Like you're good at talking. You're good at sales, which is a skill.
You got the system set up and everything, like sales page, landing page, website, the video that you can't seem to pause or you can't seem to go full screen.
You got all the configurations done. It's not just the script. You're kind of
it's not just the script.
Yeah, I see that. And to me, going back to the initial conversation of who to avoid, I have some experiences that I don't want to speak on specifics because it's not important. But I've come across a lot of people like that in my pursuit of networking. And you never really know if people are necessarily like that, especially because a lot of times people who are good at sales might literally say the opposite of, I don't like those people. And then it's like, wait a second, I think you're one of those people. But like, do you not see that? Or are you just ignoring that? I've seen that. I've had discovery calls with people who, you feel like you vibe with, and then all of a sudden you kind of watch how they promote themselves and like over a period of time. And you realize a lot of it is selling like information. And again, I'm not, and they blend communities. So it's not like it's 100% scammy. But the way I've always kind of been, which is why I've been developing software, is I don't want to be that person. I want to give away the information that I have for free. And I want people to pay me because they respect how good the software is. And they also respect that that's a real business. Like that required a lot of investment and time and energy. It doesn't just come about. But when people set up a Facebook page or a LinkedIn group and then sell information and then say, hey, like I'll get on a call with you maybe once a month, I tend to say maybe avoid those types of people because I don't think that they're the ones that are actually going to help you really grow your business. I think they're helping themselves grow their business, which, don't hate the player, hate the game. That is kind of the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like at the end of the day, we're all here to just build businesses. So I get it. But again, it's identifying when people are actually selling a product or like selling information and selling and then like understanding how they're making money. Because if you look at the product that they're selling, and it's not really a product, it's just like a bundled information or like a lot of emails, you realize that the product is kind of you. They're
Oh, yeah, okay, okay.
they're trying to get you to give them money recurringly, and then they're good at sales. So they're trying to sell as many people as possible to see how long they can keep the gravy train going.
Yeah, yeah. And then you're part of the what the 1,000 subscribers. You're part of
Yeah,
the 500 customers and clients, and part of this
yeah,
community that. Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Interesting. Yeah. So those people kind of it's like it's like bags of popcorn, you know? It's big, it looks fluffy, it looks wholesome, but it's pretty lightweight.
Yeah,
There's a lot of empty calories in there. There's not much substance. I get you. And I mean, if you're just starting off, you're trying to refine your ICP, then you might not have a whole ton of value to add. But if you're doing that intentionally and not really looking for true value to add, then I think that might be an integrity issue. And
I,
it might be something to reconsider how you've structured your business. Like, give the people substance, give the people value, true meat, the stuff that you're making, like reveal those things. Like reveal it. No, not just the fluff. Like reveal the stuff that people are gonna say, hey, I can't believe he shared that. You know?
I think AI is and so I think we're in a moment of time where that's very saturated. And I think that hopefully with AI and different communities, hopefully Pursue Networking can be one. It'll be disruptive to that industry a little bit because everyone I think right now is yearning for community. They want to join a community. They want it. But how do you know what community to join that's actually of substance, especially if you're just starting out? Like you can't. You're probably going to make certain decisions based off price and just availability, right? Somebody reaches out to you, you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, I wish I could join a community of like-minded people." Someone reaches out with a message that you think is very serendipitous, like the universe is speaking to me. It's the right price point. I'll give it a shot. Um, I mean, we're in a moment of time where it's like that's why the model works. There's enough fish in the sea that you could get the 500 people to pay you $25 a month. That is a real business in a sense. But how long does it last for? That's the question. Like how because if you're not helping people, it's the same thing as a service-based business. When we talked about ISP with retainers, it's like, yes, you think that $25 isn't it's not that much money, but if you're paying people who aren't building businesses at a certain point, whether or not it's 12 months, 18 months, they're going to stop paying. So you're going to need to continue to be good at sales. But here's the beauty. If you're good at sales and you're good at content, there's more fish in the sea. So it's fine. Like for at least the foreseeable future, how do you just continue to do sales?
Yeah, that is kind of a little scary to me. Maybe it's a pipe dream, but I'd like to get to a point where I'm not selling anymore. I mean, at least not, I think, or at least not active sales. In fact, I'd
Yeah.
love to get to the point where clients come to me like passive sales. So I put out content, and that content attracts people to me because my ICP is so clear, my branding is so clear, it's spot on. So I'm kind of like that iPhone you talked about. People already know
Yeah.
what they're getting, and they
They
want
want
it.
what you, yeah, they want it. They want what you have. That's the beauty of branding. That's the reason I am investing in doing office hours. I hope that we can create that together. It's like at a certain point, it takes time. I get it. Like most people, to create a brand is hard by by definition. But um, if you do it, it yields rewards across time.
Across time. Yeah. Especially with the power of YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn, content stays up there forever, forever. So, good stuff, good stuff. Thanks for sharing your insights, Colin, on the people to avoid in networking, or at least the people not to pursue actively. So join the Pursue Networking group. Follow the page. Follow us on YouTube as well, Instagram. We're putting out content several times a week, every week. And if you think that you'd enjoy being on this show, then jump in. Yeah, hey, message one of us. Join the group. Tell us about your business, and let's see if you can come on and share what's working for you as you pursue networking. All right, guys. So, hey, see you next week, Colin.
Take care.